Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'm making an old-time favourite and of course it's Snow White. Snow White is part of my Disney Princess Cake series, so be sure to add this playlist to your favourites and make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to my channel so you can see each of the princess tutorials as I release them. Now today I've teamed up with my friend Andrea from Pink Cake Princess and she's going to show you how to make this adorable Snow White cake topper. I'll leave a link to Andrea's tutorial at the end of my video, so be sure to check it out. So now let's get started with the cake. I have here my Snow White template and you can get a copy of this in the description box below. It prints out across 2 sheets and all you need to do is cut the sheets down the middle and stick them together. I've got a 10-inch square cake here. I've got a whiteboard. I've got my fondant roller, a sharp knife, my offset spatula, a pair of scissors, my X-Acto blade, a palette knife, a black edible marker, as well as some luster dust. I'm using a peachy pink colour here. I've got a fluffy brush, a little round cutter. All you need is a round cutter that's the size of Snow White's eyes. I've got some red sanding sugar here as well. Today I'm using some black fondant, some skin coloured fondant, a little bit of red, a little bit of brown and a tiny bit of white. I've also got some buttercream frosting, some chocolate ganache, a little bit of water and another paintbrush. And today I'm using something new. I'm using a little piece of plastic film. It's a thick plastic film which you can get at a stationery shop or a cake shop. So the first thing I need to do is position my template onto the cake, and I'm just going to fold back the top of Snow White's bow because I just need to cut around the edge of her hairline. So I'm just going to position it in the best way to maximize the cake, and then holding the knife nice and vertically, I'm going to cut all the way around the template and remove the excess cake. Now I've cut my cake in half and I'm going to add a nice thick layer of my buttercream frosting to the middle of the cake and then pop the top of the cake back on. I'm going to create a few different layers for my Snow White cake, and the first one is going to be the face section. So I've just removed that section of the template. And using my knife, I'm going to insert it about 1 centimetre deep into the cake and cut all the way around the edge of Snow White's face. Now I'm going to make a series of cuts across the face section, first in one direction and then in the opposite direction. And then using my offset spatula, I'm going to slide it in about 1 centimetre deep into the cake from Snow White's chin and scoop out this little layer of cake. The next layered section I'm going to create is going to be the very top and the very bottom of Snow White's hair. So I've removed these 2 pieces of the template, and again doing the same thing that I did for the face section, I'm going to cut into the cake, but this time a little less deep than the cut I made for the face. So about 0.5 centimetre into the cake and then remove that little layer of cake. Once all the carving's done, I'm left with 3 layers in my cake. Using my chocolate ganache, I'm going to create a crumb coat and cover the entire cake, making sure I get into all the edges nicely, smoothing it as best I can as I go along, and then I'm going to pop it in the fridge for about 15 minutes to set. Once I remove the cake from the fridge, the ganache is firm to the touch, and I'm going to smooth it over once again, this time dipping my offset spatula into some boiling water, wiping off the excess moisture, and then smoothing the spatula over the cake. Guys, if you're enjoying this tutorial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up by clicking the like button below. At this point, I'm going to carefully transfer my cake onto my cake board. Now that the cake has been covered with the chocolate ganache, The section of the template for Snow White's face is a little bit larger than the cavity that we've created, so I just need to trim it down to size so that the template fits nice and snug into the space. Before I start covering the cake in fondant, I'm going to create a little nose for Snow White, which is going to stick onto the chocolate ganache, and I'm going to form it using my template as a guide. Once I'm happy with the shape of the nose, I'm going to position it on the cake using the template as a guide by making a mark over the top and positioning it in place. Now here I've got my skin tone fondant, and I'm going to roll it out to about 2 to 3 mils thick and large enough so that I can cut Snow White's face out, as well as a little bit extra to come down the front of the cake. Carefully starting at the bottom and rolling the fondant onto my roller, I'm going to gently pick it up and lay it onto the cake. Once I've laid the fondant down, I just give it a little bit of an adjustment to make sure it's sitting nicely into the edges, and using a little ball of the same coloured fondant, I'm going to smooth over the top surface of the cake. Then once I've smoothed down the front of the cake, I'm going to use my little piece of plastic to rub up against Snow White's chin and press it down on my board to cut the fondant neatly. This gives a perfect cut at the bottom of the fondant, as well as acting as a smoother in the process. You can trim the excess fondant on the sides of her face with an X-Acto blade. So here I've rolled out my black fondant, and I'm going to cover Snow White's hair in sections, and I'll start with the top section. So I just need to cut around the template, making sure I leave plenty of fondant to cover the back of the cake. Now I can cover the top part of her hair with this fondant using the same method I did for the face. Now I'm going to work on covering the remaining sections of hair in exactly the same way, always making sure to leave enough fondant to cover the sides of the cake. Do you have a favourite Disney princess? Let me know in the comment section below who's your favourite and who you'd like to see me create next. As I work on each section, I'm just always making sure that the edges are nice and neat and the top of the fondant is nice and smooth, using a little ball of the fondant to smooth it over. I'm now going to work on Snow White's headband and her lips, and to make the bow I simply roll out a little bit of a rectangular shape of fondant and then place it on top of my template to form it into the shape of her bow. Then I'm going to add a little piece of fondant rolled into a long snake to the middle of her bow, and then for the main headband I'm just going to roll out a long piece of fondant tapered at the very edges. For Snow White's bottom lip I'm rolling out a little snake, again tapered at both ends, and for her top lip I'm going to do exactly the same and use my little finger to make an indentation for the middle part of her lips. I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle to Snow White's headband, so I'm just going to moisten her headband with a little bit of water and sprinkle over the sanding sugar. Once I've tipped off the excess sanding sugar, I'm going to just adhere it to the cake with a little bit of water. For Snow White's eyes and her teeth, I've just rolled out the white and the brown fondant, and I've cut the pieces out of the template, which I'm then cutting out of the fondant. Then it's just a matter of adhering the brown fondant onto the whites of the eyes and trimming off the excess, and rolling out 2 little balls of black fondant and adhering them to the eyes as well. For the top part of the eyelashes, I'm just rolling out a very thin snake and sticking that to the whites of her eyes. Now I can add her eyes and her mouth to the cake, and to make sure they're in the right position, I've just popped my template on top, and I'm just putting a little bit of water onto the fondant and carefully placing the eyes and the mouth onto the cake. Of course, to finish off her eyes, I need to add her little eyelashes and 2 little skinny snakes for her eyebrows. And I'm adding some final touches with my luster dust just to highlight her cheeks, the very bottom of her chin, and to create a little bit of definition. And here she is, a beautiful snow white cake with a little bit of highlight at the bottom of her eyes using the black edible marker. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to give it a like and share it with your friends. I love to get your feedback and your comments, so don't forget to drop me a line in the comment section below. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more creative cake tutorials. Don't forget to head over to Andrea's channel, Pink Cake Princess, and check out her Snow White cake topper. The link is on the screen now. And as always, thanks for watching.